Boom! Welcome to Tokyo Tonight 2. I am Hiko Simon. The show, there are no technical difficulties, or at least I certainly hope not. There is one kind of technical difficulty, at least two at the moment. Oh, the sound interface has changed. That looks very cool, but I'm going to turn that off. And that's good. Yeah, I actually upgraded my OBS software just before I went out last time, so it looks a little bit different this time, I've just noticed, but it looks very, very cool. Sergeant Buko, you said soonish, but that was actually 30 seconds ago because of the buffer lag. I am here. I hope you guys are all good. I can see all the sound levels, I can see everything, they're looking pretty good. I'm doing a couple of things at the moment. One thing is, I finally sat down tonight and I thought, you know what, I'm going to dig out those unedited Japan Business Time files that I've had, and I was getting a little bit overloaded when I stopped this, and this was about, about late 2016 that I recorded this. I ended up changing jobs around that time. Life just got a little bit too much, and with the new job and everything as well, I just kind of put it on the back burner. I thought, I haven't even watched those videos since I've recorded them, and even if it comes out kind of crap, it's better to have them uploaded than not uploaded. So I thought I'd get them ready. I thought I'd just have a look at them, and then I realized I couldn't find the files, and I knew that they existed, so I went digging around, and I actually finally found out I never even offloaded them from the media, from the camera that we recorded them in. So they weren't on my computer, and I'm just actually downloading them onto my computer now because they're over USB connected. They're enormous files. We're using the YouTube Studio cameras. So I am now only now downloading them onto my computer to watch, probably for the first time since I recorded them 1.5 years ago. Hey Aphex, good to see you. So yes. The good news is, well, at least the good news for now is that in 7 minutes time, I thought that they would be copied by now, but there was a problem with one of the files. They're very large files being copied over a USB connection. So hopefully that's not going to interfere with the broadcast for too much. It's still got 7 more minutes of cross-copying of that, but I'm very much looking forward to having that. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So hopefully very soon we'll have some more edited Japan Business Time videos again, because I do have a whole series with Rochelle Cobb that's been there for 1.5 years, and she's periodically reminded me that, and my own writing project are the two things that I wish I've always meant to continue, and this one's actually easier. Yes, in one way or another, I think I am going to get those files uploaded soon. So that is good news. In terms of the MyChan project, it is progressing. We kicked off from this week. Not much to see so far. I've been waiting for an update on it. All that I've seen so far is we've got the Google sign-in sorted out, although we've got to still connect that to the back end and have the syncing of subscriptions. However, that is still there's still some progress there, and hopefully, like I said, we're aiming for March 9th. Launch for beta, and so far all signs out that it is on schedule, although I don't have a lot to update on that right now, but that is going on plan. Japan Business Time is good. The Hanami, we got some news about that I want to share tonight. We've got actually a lot of topics. We've got the Korea Olympics going on. We had the big earthquake in Taiwan, always a big deal over here because Japan and Taiwan get on quite well. A couple of stories in the last few days that I've put in there. So yeah, this, that, and the other. I actually meant before the show I thought I'd actually record a new track, or some more loops to play at the end of the show, but instead of that I started actually thinking, where are those old videos that I've been meaning to edit for so long, and I found those instead. Actually, that was one thing that distracted me. The other thing that distracted me was that for some reason I caught one of those Watch Mojo top 10 lists about best parodies, and of course Weird Al Yankovic was in there, and he says his own name, Weird Al Yankovic, even though I always thought it was Weird Al Yankovic. And so I always just and I'm a big fan. I know pretty much every Weird Al song off by heart, and while I was going through like his best parodies of all time, it occurred to me watching White and Nerdy again, it's just such a good track. I mean, and not just as a parody, but actually it's actually amazing. It's amazingly fast, and it's quite well done. And it occurred to me to start, like, I'd like to see him do that live. Right? Was that just because it was in the studio that he could actually rap that fast? And so I started Googling live versions of White and Nerdy. And damn, it's actually really, really impressive. And that, of course, led me down a rabbit hole of watching like 6 different versions of White and Nerdy, followed by the Danny Osmond dancing version, which was also very, very good. It's actually just I lost like half an hour just doing that. So yeah, that was how my night's been. Hope you've all had a good night. Let's see who's in here. Very good, by the way, this week I caught up with Kit Crawford. I don't know if Kit's in the comments yet or if he's coming, but I met up with him for lunch the other day, and that was really, really, it was good chatting. We had a good conversation about AI and the way of the world and the world of our kids and so on, and his background. But it was nice to catch up. If you're in Tokyo, I try, I'm generally I try to make myself available as I am. I mean, I'm busy a lot of the time, but if I can, it's good to catch up for a coffee and a hello. And it was really nice to catch up with Kit Crawford, so good to see you. Nice to see in the comments, we have Mr. Gordy Chep, we have Quint Ragged, good to see you, and sorry about the confusion with the countdown timer. I don't know why it didn't update to 10:30 when I told it to. We've got Sergeant Bilko, Afex, Robert Brooker, Sergeant Bilko, Barringer, good to see you all. Lovely Kid Japan, good to have you back. Lucille Woolwich, 07 from Canada. Hey, good to see you from Canada, Lucille, and that's a name I don't recognize in the comments there, so welcome. Good to see a fresh name. And I hope that you're all well. I hope you're all watching enjoying the Winter Olympics, which I have been watching. I've kind of been talking a little bit of trash about the Winter Olympics, just from this general principle perspective, that the Winter Olympics, I've always thought are sort of like ice and snow sports. I kind of get it, but only a small number. Like, you think of the world's population, 7 billion people. There's only like a few 100 million people really within a realm that live in countries where they can really do snow and ice sports. I've always sort of thought, for temperate countries and tropical countries which do have winter sports, but for them winter sports are things like soccer and so on. I've always thought it'd always be a little bit more egalitarian. You could actually let African countries and Pacific countries get more involved in the Winter Olympics if you actually had a wider range of winter sports that didn't just involve ice and snow. But I understand that's kind of the deal. And that said, now that they're started, I have quite enjoyed watching them. Yes, indeed. Hey, Kansha Thomas, good to have you along. Robert Brooke, I think I said your name before, but good to have you in here. And Robert Old Dude, now this feels better. Well, I'm glad that whatever that is, that feels better. So, topics that I've got for this week. Let me just quickly... Pardon me, I'm just having a little bit of discomfort at the moment. I think I'm okay. It's got a nasty cramp actually, so pardon me, just gonna take a sec. Ugh. Oh, that reminds me, by the way, just while I am stretching out. How's it? Pardon me. No, yeah, I wish I could. It's not that I have to fart, but thank you for the question there, Mr. Cordy Chip, and I will mute if that's the case. I'm just, quite a bit of pain. What about the Jamaican bobsled team? Well, that is one of the subjects. There's been a big deal about, which I'll show you in a moment. Thank you for Lysander 45 for the tip. Ooh. Give me a sec. I'm just going to pause for a sec. So just pardon me for a minute. Sorry about this. I'm better. You know, I don't know how many years I've been doing this. That's the first time that's happened, actually. So, Jonan, welcome to the stream, and yes, I think I'm okay now. I've never actually had that. I'm just sorry. I was just having a lot of discomfort there all of a sudden, and yeah, if I have to stop, I have to stop. But hell, I've got things to talk about, so I would like to not do that if I can avoid it. Let's get into it. First thing is that the NBC, they went there during the Olympic opening ceremony. NHK was kind of doing this as well. When you start talking about every country in the world and you have to commentate on it, yeah, it's there's an unfortunate picture there at the moment, but you know, it sometimes is a showcase for the ignorance of the commentators as much as anything else, or the inappropriate information that they sometimes gather. But yes, they talked about when they talked about during the opening ceremony, the relations between Japan and Korea. They did bring up. Oh man, I know what's wrong. I'm going to have to take a quick break. I'm sorry about this. I'm going to start again in a couple of minutes, but let me just take a pause for a minute. Okay, I'm sorry about this. I think I might have to just go for it. Hey, I hope I'm back. I'm sorry. That was weird. Well, that was just like, it was a stomach cramp, but I don't know. I guess I was just running around a bit too much just before this, so I'm sorry about that. No need to call an ambulance. I'm actually feeling better now, but that was just, it kind of crept up, and I guess because I couldn't move or stretch out or anything like that, it just, I guess it has to happen sometime. But you know what, I went to the bathroom just to see if, you know, I needed to go there or not, and I didn't. It seemed to sort it out, so I'm okay. I hope I'm actually broadcasting. I should check that this is actually, can someone comment if you can see me back? I hope I made it back. Let's just double check on that, but I think I should be now back to being live. Let me check on my watch page. You can see me? Lovely Japan, it sounds like you can see me, yes. And I can also tell you I'm now feeling a lot better, so sorry about that. That's much better. Okay, well anyway, let's go back into it. NBC, apparently when they got into the Monty Python thing, you know, what have the Romans ever done for us? Yes, which, you know, it was basically in terms of, they talked about how Korea and Japan, they have a very difficult relationship. Japan, a country which occupied Korea from 1910 to 1945, but every Korean will tell you that Japan is a cultural and technological and economic example that has been so important to their transformation. You know, basically, oh, they sure they were colonized, but they really loved Japan. Apparently, you know, people came in and said, no, there was rape, forced labor, torture, death. This was not a single, this is the Korea Times put in the correction. Atrocities, slavery, just like, should never have gone there in the first place. So NBC actually had to publish an apology for saying how well Korea and Japan get along. Hey Laura, good to see you. And yes, good to see everyone there in the comments. And yes, it is NBC, as some people have pointed out. The NHK coverage, actually, I was watching, and I did start to notice that when they're introducing each country, like some countries only had like one athlete, and they would say who that athlete was and say a little bit about factoid about the country. But they did seem to, like when Israel came out, they said, Israel, the subject of the news lately because America unilaterally recognized Jerusalem as its capital. I'm like, well, okay, that's an interesting... Why would you raise that as the only fact about Israel when, you know, they're coming out at the Winter Olympics? And then after that, Kyrgyzstan came out. And when Kyrgyzstan came out, one guy, very nice-looking guy, you know, holding the flag, and, you know, he's getting into skating or something like that, said, yeah, Kyrgyzstan, they've had a problem lately. They've produced not just a few Islamic terrorists, it seems. I'm shocked that this didn't get caught up, but every single comment was like this. But the one for Kyrgyzstan actually made me stop and tweet. It was like, I think the NHK just basically introduced Kyrgyzstan by saying it's a major source of Islamic terrorists. Hey Shubas, good to see Shubas from Panama, good to have you. Holiday tomorrow, yes, Keikoku Kinenbi National Foundation Day tomorrow, where we celebrate the birth of the modern Japanese nation under the Yamato rule of Jimmu Tenno, the first in the line of Japanese emperors descended from the Sun God Amiratu, or whatever that name is. Yes, but basically celebrating the mythical and historic origin of Japan's foundation. Also a day in which people talk about the constitution in Japan and whether it should be amended or not. With Kazakhstan, did they describe their potassium production? What did they describe? I think they said that they used to have nukes or something like that. I mean, it was actually, yes, I never say that name right, do I? Amaterasu. Well, there we go. So yes, I can see that. Obviously the commenters on this video being much better informed are much better at producing even worse comments than the NHK for the Parade of Nations. But I must admit, you know, what is it with the internet? I remember all this, you know, instant access to all knowledge, and it was supposed to make us all so much smarter and more enlightened. How do we end up where we are? Where people can make dumber comments than they could make before. I mean, this is the thing. I guess people just feel overconfident going onto the internet now without checking stuff. Does that count as a holiday? Yes, it does. It's the I guess it's the Japan equivalent of it is the Japan equivalent of Australia Day or Waitangi Day. It is the founding of the nation day. It's like July 4th for Japan is tomorrow. Well, it's actually today, but they carry the vacation because it hits a Sunday. They're going to make it Monday, so it's actually the 11th of February. But you know, they'll make it the 12th this year, so that is good. We get the day of work, and my son's got rugby, and we're just going to hang around and do stuff. By the way, good news when it comes to the Hanami stuff. The start of Hanami will happen this year. The first Hanami forecast has come out. I've got it in the subjects here. I think it's going to be like March 23. Now, the Hanami is scheduled for April 7. But that's around the time Manka. It takes about a week or a little bit more than that, so there should be plenty of Sakura around. It's going to be 3 days later than last year, but 7 days earlier than usual. So it looks like the scheduling, although it was, you know, it's always a bit of a roll of the dice when you try to schedule the Hanami so far out, but it looks like the April 7 target is going to be pretty good. So yes, I got rid of my, well, I pretty much stopped watching TV, and I was a real TV addict. But yeah, I don't know that I've gotten smarter, but I'm certainly glad I'm not watching so much TV, and I do look at a lot of TV when I see other TV sometimes, and I think, man, I used to watch that crap, especially in Japan, all the, you know, all of the variety shows and stuff like that. I've been talking a lot about the movement towards allowing esports in Japan, and how basically it wasn't allowed in Japan because of the laws that were aimed at preventing gambling. Also had a side effect, a knock-on effect of basically laws meant to stop illegal gambling and had prevented paid tournaments in the country, even as gamers in China and the US have won fame and fortune. Back when there was no pro e-gaming, Japanese video gamers were famous for being some of the best, you know, video game makers and gamers themselves on, you know, Street Fighter, Tekken, on these sort of games that Japan was making. And then esports came up, and it was illegal in Japan, so all these other countries, Europe, China, Korea, America, all raced ahead, and it was really weird that Japan wasn't participating in that. But there's just been a liberalization of the game legislation, which now allows for esports. I've talked about this recently because I think it's just weird that Japan's not in this, and they're going to have the first professional tournament with $300,000 prize money being played. When is it? Is it this weekend? It is coming up soon anyway. And Sony and Mixi are sponsoring it, and there are going to be competitions in, you know, not League of Legends or whatever they like you typically see for esports. It's going to be in what I consider to be real games: Tekken 7, Street Fighter. You know, there's a whole list actually. Winning 11 2018. Again, all my Japanese friends played this. I used to play this in college. Yeah, they've got pretty awesome titles: Call of Duty, Street Fighter, Tekken 7, Winning 11. They're going to have a pro tournament in these for Japan. Yeah, you know, and this is just the start. This is the first tournament. Mr. Korichev, the first prize in other competitions is 1 million, that's right, and this is because the gaming laws specifically prohibit the amount of money that you're allowed to offer, but this is being liberalized. I think the government's starting to recognize now that, you know, that the gaming laws have been inhibiting this area, where frankly Japan can actually do pretty well and be a leader, and you know, it's kind of inhibited that. So it's actually been news. There it is on the NHK that the first esports pro licenses have come to Japan, so better late than never anyway. Not Japan related, but I had to talk about this with the speed skating. Of course, congratulations on South Korea, the hosts. They've done a really good job so far. I mean, there's been a lot of people poo-pooing the South Korean organization, doubts whether they would be ready, whether Japan might have to help them. all these sorts of controversies and so on, about having the unified team and so on. But by all accounts, it looks like Pyeongchang's done a great job getting the Winter Olympics started, and a successful first day with a short course speed skating gold medal for South Korea. The bronze medal guy, I believe, is it the guy on the right there? From the Russian, of course, from the what do they call it? The Olympic athletes from Russia team, because Russia's banned from the doping from the last Olympics. Not Japan related, but it's an interesting story. The world, apparently the main rival of the Korean chap here, the most famous short course speed skater from Russia, is a guy called Victor Ahn. Ahn, of course, being a Korean name, so obviously probably a Russian of Korean extract or heritage. However, he was among the people that were caught doping after the Sochi Olympics, and part of the entire government being, of course, banned. This time around. And so when the Russian, the guy on the right, I believe, yes, won the bronze medal, he was one of the ones that was caught. Congratulations, Sweden, on getting the skiing medal. So yeah, when of course he got the bronze medal for this, he actually dedicated the win to his good friend there. We're coming to my point here. Kit, welcome. Good to meet you for lunch this week. I think I mentioned earlier. Welcome joining. The fact that you just mentioning the name of the winner there was immediately censored. I think this is the point that I'm kind of getting to, and this is the immature reason that I'm posting this. Victor Ahn being unable to participate, of course. The bronze medalist, when interviewed, decided to dedicate the medal to the Olympians that couldn't be there representing Russia. He is now facing sanction from the International Olympic Committee, because he said he's dedicating this to his compatriots who have been banned from the games in such a hard and unfair way. I don't know how you pronounce his name exactly. I don't know exactly how you pronounce his name. Well, let's say he's Semen. Let's call him Semen Elistratov. He's a clean athlete. He's worked hard, and it looks like now he's going to face sanction. You were a little premature with the name there. So Semen was being critical of the IOC, and now it sounds like they're going to punish him. And what I would like to say is to the IOC, please spare Semen. Semen. Are we going to say that? Maybe Semen or Semen. I'm not sure. I think you see someone there and you think that little Semen growing up, I mean, he was probably given a hard enough time that I don't know why we need to be thinking about adding punishment to someone who I imagine's already had a hard enough life. So here's what I say. Mr. Cordy Chap, you are banned. I'm going to block you. Yeah, well, so this is just it. I think they're being a little bit too harsh. I think granted, Semen, he should have held it in. He shouldn't have just gone blurting all over the place as he did. But there again, I think beating up on him, it's just, I think it's a little bit too much. And I'm a great believer. I say free Semen. That's what I say. I say let him go out and be free, and go where he needs to go. I don't even know what to do with that comment. There's no point really censoring it because everyone can see Lucille, but well, anyway, I don't even know what that means. So anyway, spent far too much time on that one. In the shortage of workers, Japanese moving companies are increasing their costs. I'm sorry, I didn't expect it to come out the way that it did. So yes, we have Japanese moving companies. If you're coming to Japan and you're going to be moving, hey Tai Nakamura, good to see you. They're going to be increasing their moving prices because they need to increase wages to pay for people because there aren't enough people to do all the lifting. I hope that they get the robots. The picture there of Nippon Express, Nitsu, they are freaking expensive. They are the most expensive ones out there. Yes, they have the they are increasing those costs. So if you want to move, you better move soon because it's getting more expensive, as are parcel deliveries. Yamato's had the same thing for the same reason. Hey, Kevin Crocker, long time no see. Kevin Crocker is an absolute legend. Go check out his channel and so on. He makes also very, very good music. Good to see you, sir. Tip of the hat to you. And yes, so Ty, if you're going to open a business, the moving costs are going to be a little bit more expensive, but but yes, Sergeant Bilko, behave. Even though you're quoting what I said, I actually watched this today. This was actually quite good. Were you here last week? Did I miss that? Anyway, look, Kevin's a legend, and Chris Odella, Eddie Keko, good to see you. Another one of these videos on the history of Japan. I thought this was just someone reposting that old awesome video on like the history of Japan, but this is not the history of Japan. This is the geography of Japan, and it's 15 minutes long, but it's an entertaining watch. It's quite well done, except for the fact that they say that Osaka and Nagoya are the third biggest cities in Japan, forgetting that Yokohama is actually the second biggest city in Japan. But yeah, other than that, it's a very, very good video, and it's well worth watching if you're at all interested in Japan. It's a very good summary, not just of the history, but of the geography and the culture and everything. It's extremely well done. The pronunciation of the names is he's trying very, very hard to be accurate, you know, without obviously being able to speak Japanese, and I think he deserves credit for that. So yeah, I thought this was actually a very good video. So go watch that one. The Jamaican bobsled thing, now this is really, really interesting. Now you remember Cool Runnings, I mean the Jamaican bobsled team that became kind of this big celebrity thing, and it became kind of a big deal for these sort of artisans, these old-fashioned artisan guys in Shitamachi, in Otaku, that they were the hand makers, you know, the crafters of the Jamaican bobsled. And this became such a big sort of a deal. It became like the big whole town festival thing. Hey, we're making a bobsled for Jamaica for the Olympics, and it became like this huge thing. And actually, it's become the subject of a TV drama. There's been like a manga series about it. There's been like special dedicated Jamaican bobsled team number plates for Otaku, which have been issued. You know, this whole thing's become like this economic phenomenon. In fact, I'll show you. I mean, just to show you how big this has gotten. There is a TV drama, the Shitamachi bobsled, the Jamaican bobsled makers. There is a movie coming out. In fact, sorry, this is the drama promotion for that. There's a manga based on it. There is a car number plate which have been issued. If you live in Otaku and you've just gotten, there have been jokes going around actually that yes, the first time people are happy to have Adachi number plates is when this came out. You can see that with the Jamaican bobsled. There's Jamaican bobsled sake. There is I mean, some people have said this is a little bit of Dentsu taking something and making it go out of control. There are, you know, Shitamachi bobsleds. There's like bread. There's Shinzo Abe inside the Shitamachi Jamaican bobsled. There he is holding a T-shirt with the Jamaican flag and everything on it. Only problem is that the Jamaicans decided when they got the bobsled that they didn't really like it, and they preferred ones made by the Latvians. And so they're using the Latvian one for the Olympics, and they decided not to actually use the Jamaican bobsled. So there's this list here of all the things that they've got, all the achievements and not achieved from the whole Jamaican bobsled project, of the things that have been achieved. First of all, they got government subsidies and overseas travel. They got a TV drama made. They got a manga made. Special edition number plates issued by the local government. There was a special Jamaican bobsled sake issued. There was a special type of bread issued. There has even been apparently a morality school textbook issued based on the story of the making the Jamaican bobsled. And on the not achieved column, there is a Jamaican bobsled team using the Jamaican bobsled made by them. So yes, everyone's kind of giving the people in bobsled. There's been a joke going around on Twitter that it's the first time ever that people have been happy not to have an Otaku number, because I know I've gotten some extreme negative feedback from my from Adachi people for what I've said about Adachi on these videos in the past, but my prejudice to Adachi number plate stands, and it's not just me. I mean, you know, if you see, they're terrible drivers. They are I don't know why they learn how to drive differently in the ghetto, but seriously, Adachi number plates are terrible. But the Otaku number plates have a good reputation. But the problem is now they have these things with the Jamaican bobsled on it. When the Jamaicans decided not to use their bobsled because they sucked. Whoa, that's 5% battery. I might have to take a measure. Wait a minute. That would be embarrassing if I lost power there. Let's charge this up. Oh, there we go. So I thought that was kind of funny, but that's what's happened with the Jamaican bobsled thing. Hika refuses to apologize for what? What do I refuse to apologize for? I mean, I don't really care. But 5% speed up. That's right. Taiwan earthquake. So again, Taiwan's on the same rim of fire that Japan is. They get earthquakes just like us. They get big earthquakes periodically. On the very far western edge of Taiwan, there's this very big earthquake which affected a hotel there, with many foreigners, including Japanese, in it. And oh, the Adachi people. Hey, look, some of my best friends are from Adachi. Okay, I mean, you know, they're not all bad, but yeah, like I'm saying, this is a great night to have an Adachi car number plate that you're actually thankful for it. You know, well, congratulations, Adachi people. So yes, they you know, shouldn't be laughing going into a store talking about this. A number of people have died. It's a serious earthquake. As usual, very good to see. Japan has immediately sent over search teams. Money, fundraising. Japanese, you should appreciate as well. So when Taiwan is a really interesting factor when you consider how complicated the relations are between China and Japan. There are Taiwanese people are pretty openly, they like Japan, in spite of having been colonized very similarly actually to Korea, yet the attitudes towards Japan are so different. Again, the history and the circumstances. Obviously, you don't need to go into it in too much detail, but a lot of the Taiwanese who were there. Well, one, of course, there were Taiwanese who never wanted to be colonized by Japan. There were Taiwanese who were very pro-China all along. There were Taiwanese who didn't want to be colonized by China or the mainland. But there are on those Taiwanese population, what, 25 million. Half are descended from people who fled from the mainland after the Civil War in China, and about half were originally Taiwanese people. You know, who lived in Japan, who lived in Taiwan when it was part of Japan. And because the Chinese rule of Taiwan was so harsh, there is a part of the population there that likes Japan, you know, and some which are not quite so keen about it. And there are a lot of Japanese who lived in Taiwan and were stationed in Taiwan during the war who served with Taiwanese people. And you know, there's a lot of mutual affection, and when something like this happens, it's always kind of heartwarming actually to see. For a country that Japan doesn't officially recognize or have diplomatic relations with, in deference to China, it is actually quite nice to see that in spite of that, Japan does have very good relations with Taiwan. And you know, especially in times like this, where, you know, Taiwan's kind of invisible status could really be an inhibitor for international help and so on. It's actually nice to see that Japan doesn't let that get in the way, where it's absolutely called for in responding to this. I believe last I heard there are still some people trapped in that hotel, and I hope they get them out. This is also another thing with Taiwan, that in spite of the fact that it's like Japan on a earthquake risk area, that, you know, whenever they have a significant quake there are, unfortunately, as there are in Japan, you find which buildings were built not up to standard, right? Like where you had dodgy construction companies, and this appears to be one of those cases. The indigenous Taiwanese are also extremely interesting, apart from the fact that indigenous Taiwanese people apparently, you know, they think some of them would have moved into Japan and they would have shared heritage with Japanese, or at least Yayoi people and stuff like that. There's actually scientific history now that they found that the people from Hawaii and Polynesia, New Zealand, basically New Zealand, Samoa, Hawaii, Tonga to some extent, you know, Cook Islands, all these sort of countries that have Polynesian people, Tahiti, they all use a type of pottery which is actually traced, and they can actually trace the migration where they went from Taiwan through Philippines, through Indonesia, island hopped out to Fiji, out to the Pacific, and they stopped when they hit basically the end of the road. Easter Island, Tahiti, Hawaii, New Zealand. The Polynesians came from Taiwan. They actually found they used pottery techniques, lapita pottery, which came from Taiwan. So, you know, and Maori language actually contains words in common with traditional Taiwanese and Japanese. So, all the reasons. You know, we have a lot of Taiwanese people in New Zealand as well. You know, I'm a Taiwanese fan, and Japanese people. When they have, like, you know, most beautiful people in Asia sort of rankings, Taiwan always wins. It's not like Japanese have this anti-Chinese thing per se. They've always had a difficult relationship with the communist Chinese and the sort of the mainland government that's there. But remember, Japan's had, you know, mixed. You say good and it becomes like you've overstated. You become an NBC commentator. But they've always had, you know, more deep and complex relationships, definitely with Taiwan and with northern China, with Manchuria. So yeah, I always find that really, really interesting. And truth is, I mean, you know, I know a lot of Taiwanese people in New Zealand, and I know how Japanese people in Japan look at like Taiwanese idols and so on, and they're very, very popular here. So, you know, it's pretty cool. So all of that said, that's why there's, I think, a lot of mutual affection. And certainly affection from Japan towards Taiwan, and you know, I really hope that everyone there is okay and that they can recover from this quake. And you know, when Japan gives help for these things, it's partly because we know it's going to happen to us. I mean, it's not like it could. It 100% is going to happen to us. So it's nice to see people showing, you know, solidarity over that sort of thing. This is cool. Intel has decided they're going to bring out a kind of a Google Glass thing, except they're going to look like regular glasses, and it's going to work and not look like it stinks, like Google Glass kind of did, because they're going to use freaking laser beams on the head. No sharks needed, unless, depending on the personality of the person. I think this is really, really cool. I mean, I can't wait to have like little freaking lasers in here and like a screen and stuff like that. So yes, that is kind of cool. I can't wait for that. A friend of the lady looks like Sayumwen. Mr. Courtney Chap, that is an interesting fact. She has to hide when she's at the airport. Well, I think that's... yeah. I'm not even going to dive deep into that, but that is interesting. That is interesting. So apparently they can project. They reckon they can bounce off the glass on the things from a projector into your eye, and they reckon that they can get. In fact, let me not mistake this. So where did they talk about the type of laser and the degree of detail? I mean, they say it's 400 by 150, so it's going to be pretty crap to begin with. But I do like the idea and you know, and the approach. So I thought that was just kind of cool. These photos this week of the Tesla car going into space. Yeah, and no camera on them, by the way, as well, which I think is also a positive thing. I don't think you really need a camera on your glasses. I mean, and that was what was kind of creeping people out. I think a display on your glasses, I think, is super cool, and that's all that I agree. That's all that you really need. The car in space, the Tesla car in space. I mean, on the one hand, I thought this was just totally cool. Now, I get that there are people who are criticizing this, saying, you know, this guy. This launch, they can launch 60 tons at a time into space. These are loads that would cost like more than $100 million to launch at a time. Why is this guy doing a stunt that cost that much money? Now, granted, it was a test, and people weren't sure. Even you know, Elon Musk himself wasn't sure that this thing wouldn't just blow up when they sent it up. But they sent it up and they launched this car, and now it's on an orbit around Earth, which actually loops out into the Mars orbit. So this thing's going to be going around Mars and everything like that. Apart from the fact that it's just cool and awesome. Turns out the story behind this is that he actually offered first NASA a free 60-ton launch into orbit, and they weren't interested. And then he went to the Department of Defense and he offered to do the same for them, and they said they weren't interested either. So it was the plan B was launching his car. Hey, John Anderson, good to see you, and greetings there in London. Good morning to you. And that's right, and it's the cheapest heavy launcher that can do this, exactly, and they turned it down. They're still building their own launch system that's going to be far more expensive, and he was going to give them a freebie of launching something like this, and they turned it down. That's why he sent the car up, because they needed to test it. They needed to check it could actually deploy a payload. And I mean, in a way, I'm glad that they turned him down, but at the same time, I mean, you know, how stupid do they look now for turning down something that's as successful as this photo? And I do think that while on the one hand, is it really right when there's all this poverty and suffering in the world for there to be people rich enough to be able to do this? But on the other hand, this excites me. I mean, you know, this is inspirational. That can go to Mars just like that. I mean, if you can do that, you can send like whole submarines. You could send like very large objects, it sort of unlocks all the sort of stuff that was only in science fiction. It becomes very real and very cool, and just for the inspiration value, I don't know, I think people, yeah, well, apparently this is a story that I've seen getting circulated this week, that they turned it down. They said that they weren't interested. Apparently NASA's all along been very skeptical about the Falcon Heavy launcher. They didn't think it was possible for a private company to do it, and they've done it, so far successfully. And they've done it a lot cheaper than NASA can do it. So it's kind of interesting. Maybe it's a bit of hubris, and it is just a test, but it's an awesome test, right? And I think that the not just the marketing value for him, I think the inspiration value is really, really cool. Coming back on the glasses with the camera thing, in China, well, I guess China's in a way a bit of a dystopian future version where, when you have all of this technology that's coming out uninhibited by respect for human rights and individual privacy, you get China. And the lady there with the camera on, and in a way doing what's completely logical and rational, and what you perhaps, if you were like in 1984 writing a book about 2018, what you would expect. That police would walk around with glasses on that contain a camera and a display which allow facial recognition of people as they walk around, which basically allows them to ID people without permission and look for and find people like terrorists or people with warrants or whatever. That in any civilized Western country this would be considered a serious invasion of state privacy, but of course in China you don't have you don't have personal privacy to be really invaded in the first place, so they just wear these things. And I don't know, actually. I mean, on the one hand, I suppose you look at it like here and you realize, well, this technology is kind of inevitable, and in a way, you see China's probably running away. They're going to IDs criminals. Well, it IDs everybody. I mean, anyone. The definition of criminal in China is, well, one, police can decide what crimes are, pretty much. And, and it's a country where, in spite of what the Constitution says, anyone who thinks the government or the police thinks might be an enemy of the state becomes a criminal, so everyone starts that. So exactly, spot the dissident. So kind of cool, kind of scary, kind of Black Mirror-ish, but there again, as Black Mirror shows us, no matter how much we want to resist the idea of this, it's probably not going to Phoenix, thanks for telling us that you're working the pecs while you're watching the show. I hope my droning voice gives you a good rhythm for when you are toning those pec muscles there. That's very good. So anyway, it's kind of terrifying, kind of scary, but at the same time it's kind of inevitable, and part of me thinks, well, shit, we can't let that happen here. And on the other hand, we think, but you know what, if they're doing it first, they're going to get better at all of this technology ahead of us, and then we're going to need for them to come back. No need for EDM, indeed, I'm the EDM. We come back and we're going to be asking them for the technology in the end. Hey, NMX04, good to have you indeed. Gentle person. Oh, that's Gentle Person, by the way. President of Canada, Prime Minister of Canada. He's setting us all straight on that. So all the persons and the woke persons, I hope you are all okay, and remember, don't use that word. Interesting. Anyway, I thought this is another thought-provoking thing about a dystopian future that's actually already happening. Okinawan politics. I like to talk Okinawan politics. I think I've talked a couple of times already about how complicated Okinawa is in the relationship, not just between America and the Okinawan people, but also the relationship between left and right in Japan and the mainland in Okinawa, and right-wingers in central government and local left-wingers in Okinawa, and the perception that Okinawa is like a pro-China communist sort of subversive holdout island to papers like the very conservative Sankei Shimbun, which is a mainstream but very right-wing newspaper. And they do like to bash on their Okinawan newspaper, very left-wing. Okinawa has no conservative newspapers. They're all very leftist and very anti-American and anti-central government. And so the Sankei likes to point out just how, how they actually like to use the line that the US military forces like to use in Okinawa, that the Okinawan leftists are racist towards the Americans. Which you could argue, yes, the Americans in Okinawa are a minority, so they could be victims of racism from the local people, but there again, the local people would argue back that America's colonized them for 30 or 40 years, and they clearly have the power in the relationship between them. So simply protesting abuse of power by a tyrannical foreign occupying power isn't, surely that's not racism, but it goes back and forth. But certainly the local government, the Sankei likes to back up the Americans on the view that the Okinawans are just, punks, left wing sort of, Red Army sort of punks that beat up on them. And by the way, when you see some of the videos of protests outside US bases, they get pretty scary shit sometimes. Like, the way that they and try to intimidate people driving in and out of the bases, the base workers and so on. It's a tense and very complicated thing, every aspect of Okinawa. So Sankei, apparently when there had been a car accident involving, a US sergeant or whatever, reporters from the Sankei posted in Okinawa found some Facebook chatter among the US forces there that a Marine had actually been quite heroic after the accident, going and getting help and helping, attending to the wounded people. And the Sankei published a story basically saying how when the accident was criticized, basically how, another accident caused by the Americans and, all this sort of thing, the Sankei said nobody in Okinawa, none of the Okinawa newspapers reported the heroic actions of Marine such and such. It turned out that when there was some fact-checking on this, that the story was mistaken. Even the Americans involved denied it in the end, and Sankei basically, they really took to task the people of Okinawa and the Okinawa newspapers for just how their racism against the Americans doesn't let them properly highlight the good deeds of Americans, when in fact it was something more along the lines of an American drunk driver actually causing an accident and injuring people. It really shows the reason I shared this story, and I find that interesting, is it does show the dynamics of the politics down there. You've got a right-wing central government that kind of is looking for leverage to be able to criticize the Okinawans at any opportunity for being too critical of the Americans, but at the same time they were wrong. But they were looking for something that fits into a predisposed mindset that a lot of conservatives in Tokyo have of Okinawa. And at the end they had to apologize for it because it ended up doing the exact opposite of what they meant. Apparently this was fairly recently. The retraction was posted this week. So in December 9, so apparently last year in December 9, December 10, they said that a US Marine rescued a Japanese civilian who'd been in an accident just before the Marine was run over by a car himself, leaving him in a coma. They basically took to task the local newspapers about it, but apparently it wasn't accurate. Cherry blossom forecast for 2018. I think I've already said this. They've actually already come up with the start dates for Tokyo. It's going to be March 23, which is earlier than usual. Honshu, Kyoto, Gifu, Mie, Tokyo, March 24. But that's for the start. It's going to be about just over a week after that we get to full blossom. So the Hanami for April 6th that Phoenix 787 is organizing there, as he works his rippling pecs. He is going to be doing another awesome job of this as he did last year, and we should have proper Hanami then, so it should be pretty awesome. That is cool. So look out for that. There'll be updates on the Hanami weather forecast as that gets updated. Well, I sound a 45. You just keep saying what you need to say. Blink twice. That's right. Once for yes, two for no. Bump, bump. Yes, yes. That's right. South Park. Tourism. All of you tourists who have been coming to Japan, you've been adding. You've lifted Japan's account surplus to a 10-year high. So congrats to you. It is really weird to me still that Japan has become such a tourist destination, but I think it's actually very cool. So that is cool. The Tokyo is going to be building, apparently scheduled for 2040, so I don't know how real this is, but they're talking about making a 70-story skyscraper out of wood. The company is a wood company, Sumitomo Forestry, so naturally they would go for it. I do immediately worry. Benefit of wood is that it's more flexible than concrete, so it's good for earthquakes. What I do worry about, however, is how strong it is to be able to support the weight of a 70-story building, plus the fact it could catch on fire. And I don't know how they're going to work around that. I'm not sure I would rush to live in the penthouse of a 70-story wooden building. I mean, the Roman times, they had apparently quite high buildings that were all made out of wood, and yes, they were the cheapest ones because they would burn regularly. That said, apparently they have a plan, and they say we should trust them, and I say we listen to them, and someone else go and live in them. But I think it's interesting. It's actually pretty cool. It would end up being the highest wooden building in the world. Free fonts, man. Japanese has lots of cool fonts, and if you want Japanese fonts that are free that look awesome, I always bookmark and share on Twitter any font related thing. They don't come out very often. Here you go, 100 free fonts, and just for an idea, mainly Japanese based, but of course, you know, all Japanese fonts you can type in English as well. And there are some pretty sweet ones here. I mean, different sites, different fonts. All the graphics are loading now, but these are pretty cool, pretty funky. I mean, you know, if you ask me, you can never have too many fonts. So, oh, I like that smart font. I quite like that sort of style, that sort of gothic kind of thing. Smart Office. I don't like that. I'm not a big fan of that one. But the point is, you get 100 of them, 100 fonts. I mean, it doesn't even matter if you don't like 99% of them, because you get 101% of totally awesome new fonts. So some good stuff there. I tweeted the stuff. This is in my my Flipboard weekly magazine thing, which you can access, you can find, or you can ask me to retweet. But just go through and you can find in my tweets. This is all based on my Twitter, so you can find these. Go check that out. 100 free fonts. I mean, how awesome is this photo? The last photo of the Tesla as it leaves Earth. That's a real photo. Can you believe that's a real photo? That's a real photo. That's just so awesome. This is really good. This is a good read. This is by Engadget, just talking about you know, the latest guide to buying cameras this year, and kind of where the state of play is with technology, with picking a camera for shooting video if money is no object. Yada yada yada. They do come in, and it actually surprises me that the Fujifilm TX2 and the you know, the Sony A7R for mirrorless, good for video, good for low light. They talk about how the Panasonic GH5 is the kind of one of choice for video makers. But yeah, they've got a real good guide here to pretty much any camera that you could want to buy at the moment. So I found that a very good read. Apparently they've lifted the risk of the Nankai Trough, the South Ocean Trough, predicted earthquake, mega quake, which is supposed to, it's overdue to happen now in southern Japan. It would happen all along, a bit like the Tohoku quake happened along a very long line, which is why the magnitude was so big, not because it was very big in one place, it was because it was big across a large area. The Nankai Trough would be a similar quake, and it would cause a very large tsunami all the way from Kyushu to Shizuoka Prefecture, and would probably flood Osaka, Nagoya, and all of those coastal cities. And they have just raised the risk of that happening within the next 30 years to being from 70% to 80%. Now, this is still, they're trying to figure out the right logic for this sort of thing. But sometime in the next 30 years, they reckon it's in 80%. I mean, that's pretty much as certain as you can be. So, point being, always make sure you know how high you are above ground, you know how to get to higher ground. Most cities in Japan, particularly around the train stations, will have signs indicating the level of height. So if you ever get a tsunami warning, you know sort of where you stand. Keep a supply of food, stock, and everything at home. If you know, which I learned during the 2011 quake. You know, just kaiju attacks definitely predicted. Definitely that's going to be a part of it. So just make sure you're prepared, you know, for dealing with a significant natural disaster. If you're in Japan, you just have to. You'd be stupid not to. This apparently there is now an Ani-megaphone, which I think should be reported to the Geneva Conventions and registered and stopped from use. But apparently it's a megaphone which will convert your voice into anime character voices. yeah. Why someone had to do this? I mean, I think that's a pretty realistic recreation of how it would be in operation. Probably at yes, cosplay conventions and so on, it might be useful, but not sure. You know, I think sometimes science just goes too far. I can deal with the Chinese police with the cameras and the facial recognition, but I'm not sure I want an Otaku-Megaphone. That's just a thing. A guy I know wrote this. He's a very thoughtful and entertaining thinker, and he likes to set out just unilateral, extreme positions about things. Notice me, senpai. I do quite like that. This is an interesting and bold statement. I'd rather fly economy on a Japanese airline than business on a US airline. This is from Joe Sass. The World According to Joe. It's a good blog. He talks a lot about the difference living between America and Japan, and in spite of being, I think he's American, of Japanese extraction, he's extremely nationalist Japanese when it comes to flying. And I kind of get it. I've had some really crappy airline experiences, and I've never had anything as close to the spectacularly bad experiences I've had on US airlines that I've had on Japanese airlines. So they're a lot better, but there again, I got upgraded to business on Delta on my last flight over to the US, and it was very, very nice actually. But that was a new airplane, so I kind of lucked out with that. The risk of having a really crap old plane with a really old-fashioned business class would absolutely, like an old 747, would probably be worse than a economy on an ANA flight, definitely on on one of the 787s or the new airplanes. But yeah, I must say the Delta, the one that I had, was pretty good. Yeah, on United or Southwest or also Northwest or Spirit Airlines. By the way, the Spirit Airlines one in Florida, where they said she couldn't bring, that woman couldn't bring her emotional support animal, the hamster, so she flushed it down the toilet to get on the plane. I think that whole thing's just going a little bit too far. I don't know why you're allowed to carry emotional support animals on airplanes in the first place. This was kind of interesting. A public school in Ginza. So yes, it's in a rich area, Ginza, but it's a public school. Regular people, no fees. They said that, okay, yeah, you have no school fees, but we are now changing the school uniform to be Armani, and all parents are going to have to pay $730. Technically not actually going to have to pay $730. The base uniform, the minimum, so provided they can survive through winter with just a t-shirt and shorts, only costs them like $190. So I don't know what they're complaining about, but if they actually want to wear like a jacket and a jersey and have the full set, it's going to cost, they're going to have their school uniforms made by Armani. They're going to cost $730. And even though this became national news and people are outraged that a public school would force parents to pay $730 for their kids' uniforms to be made by Armani, the school principal is not backing down. I suspect that she owes money to violent mobsters. I think that's the only reason that this would make any sense. But yes, I thought that's kind of, they are actually quite good looking school uniforms. I mean, if they made them, no, but no matter how much they're in Ginza, that's just stupid. Bad news for people possibly watching this. Japan is hunting down illegal manga and video game translators. I guess they're getting more aware of the value of their intellectual property, and certainly if the reverse of this, US companies, they would not be cool with pirate translations of US stuff. Japan's getting a little bit wiser to that, but there again, the whole fan subbing thing has always been a very, very big thing, yes, I did see the story about the emotional peacock, and let me tell you, I can understand an emotional support dog, an emotional support cat. Even though I'm allergic and I'm not a cat person, I could understand emotional support cats. I can even understand an emotional support hamster. I mean, I certainly can't understand flushing your own emotional support hamster down the toilet like that lady in Florida did, but I cannot understand an emotional support peacock. And I never actually encountered a peacock until I was recently in the countryside in the UK, and I encountered a few peacocks, and I learned, see, here's the thing about peacocks as animals. Beautiful birds, the tail and everything, spectacular, but they are bastards. I mean, these birds are assholes, and I don't mean like even figuratively. I mean, they are actually sons of bitches. These birds are just horrible. They are just the worst tempered sons of, they're just horrible things. They just peck at people. They're aggressive, they're ill-tempered, they're big, and they're just like they're just complete bastards. So I cannot understand the idea of someone having that for an emotional support animal. I mean, to begin with, it's basically like already having an animal as a substitute for an abusive relationship that you like to be in. So yeah, I think that the United Airlines, I never thought I'd say that I'm totally with United Airlines on this. I've never said that for anything in my whole life, but I am with United Airlines on turning down the emotional support peacock, and frankly, they shouldn't even allow that for anything. They should allow fan subbing. I think that kind of sucks that they're cracking down on that. There's the esports. A cabinet survey has found that although Japan does not recognize hyphenated names or separate names among spouses, even optionally, they've just done a survey of the cabinet's just done a national survey, and they found that 59% of people really don't give a crap about allowing people to keep separate surnames, which actually you have if you marry a foreigner, but by law you cannot have if you're Japanese and married to a Japanese. So maybe we'll see something there. Abe, he didn't want to go to Korea. He didn't want to meet President Moon because they're being kind of difficult about the whole comfort woman thing. But the Americans called him up and they said, Shinzo, you got to go to Korea. You got to be a good boy. So he went over there, had a meeting with Moon, and he said two things. He said, hey, you guys have to not stop the your joint military training with the US just because you want to be nice with North Korea. You should totally do that military training. To which Moon said, well, that would be three-way training with Japan if it weren't for the fact that Korea will never allow Japan to actually have any defense relationship with them. And he kind of said, well, none of your business, don't tell us that. And then he said, okay, well, also make sure that you meet your obligation to suppress the comfort woman issue. Both of those messages I'm sure went down like cold vomit, but I'm pretty sure that Shinzo himself didn't care and the Koreans really didn't care either. It was just an awkward, like all things when Japan has to sit next to Korea. They're just an awkward. I wish that they weren't like that, but they are. And yeah. So that was how that went. And that's really about it. That's all that I've got for this week. I'm going to do a bit of an outro music tune. The Sergeant Bilko, you do that. I'm sorry for this. I'm actually feeling much better. I just had a weird, quite painful cramp at the start of the show, so I'm sorry about that, but I'm feeling much better. Recapping from the beginning, I just found the lost files. I found the lost series that I recorded for Japan Business Time with Rochelle Cobb, which we recorded in a ramen shop. It's actually really cool. It's in a set from the YouTube studio. Just around the time, just before I was changing jobs, when I was just extremely busy, I kind of shelved it. I never even offloaded the files into my computer. I just found the media storage with it. I was just looking for it tonight. I found the files and I've just loaded them into my computer. They finished saving while I was recording this. So I've never actually watched them. I don't even know how many episodes we can cut out of it. And you know what? Even if the editing isn't great, even if I just leave it, just let it run for each one, I just cut up the episodes and I just do minimal editing. I'm going to do that because they were great conversations, and I regret. Hey, Kobayashi Tenshi, good to see you. Yeah, I regret not having put that out there until now. So it's good news that I found it, and that's something I do mean to get around to now. So there's been some small progress on that. The MyChan TV, it is coming along. It is in full development at the moment. I'm due for a status update, which I wanted to get a couple of days ago, but hopefully we'll get it soon. Everything I know is that it's on schedule at the moment. We've actually got some of the Google account integration going. It's going to be awesome. It should be ready by the first week of March. In fact, come think of it. Yeah. So we're like about 4 weeks away now at the moment. I'm very much looking forward to that. So hopefully I'll have some updates for you on that next week. And everything is cool. I hope you all well. Have a very good week. I'm going to do a musical outro. I was going to prepare a thing for this, but I got stuck watching White and Nerdy live recordings on YouTube and of Rita Yankovic, and finding that file. So I'm quite happy that I did that. And let me, that might make a bit of noise, hang on a sec. Let me hook up and do an outro tune for you all, and have a very good week. Hope that you are all well. Very good to see you, Kit Crawford, during the week. It was fun hanging out. We actually had a really good conversation. I got a little bit too wrapped up, and I suddenly realized that I ran over time. I had to run back to work, but I did actually enjoy the whole theme about sort of how AI is sort of taking over in the future, that kind of the robots are sort of coming or whatever, and kind of how, to me, the links between Prometheus, Dawn of the Apes, and the Bible, and all these things, the way that they all sort of overlap and everything, are really, really interesting. We started talking about that, but and we started talking about AI and the impact it's probably going to have on our kids, and it was actually a really good conversation. So yeah, I do appreciate the time talking, and anytime you want another coffee or a lunch. Yeah, we had a cool time. I had a good time chatting about that stuff. So very good to see you. And yeah, if you're ever around in Tokyo and you want to catch a coffee, feel free. So let's pick one that I haven't done yet. So I think I've done a few of these right now. Okay, let's try this one. Feel the Wave. I don't think I've done this one yet. So let's get the volume level right. Let's turn on the audio capture and let's do the outro. Have a good week, everybody. And let's do a track. Drum and bass. let's do a transition. It's just messing around anyway. I'm going to say goodnight. I'm going to go check out these files that I just downloaded. Hope you'll have a good week, and I will see you all later. Peace. Boom.